My name is Emily Carter. I'm 29 years old, and until 3 weeks before my wedding, I believed I had the perfect life. I lived in Seattle, Washington, where I worked as a kindergarten teacher. Every weekday, I spent my mornings helping little children learn their ABCs, tie their shoes, and believe in themselves. It wasn't the highest-paying job, but it filled my heart with happiness. 3 years ago, I met the man I thought I would spend the rest of my life with. His name was Ryan Brooks. Ryan was 33 years old and worked as a software engineer. We met completely by accident at a neighborhood coffee shop. I was struggling to carry my laptop, a stack of lesson plans, and a large cup of coffee. Before I knew it, the coffee spilled all over the floor. Ryan rushed over with a handful of napkins. "I think your coffee was trying to escape," he joked. I laughed so hard that I forgot how embarrassed I was. That was the beginning of our story. Ryan was kind in all the little ways that mattered. Every morning, he made fresh coffee before I woke up. During the winter, he warmed up my car before I left for work. If I had a difficult day, he always listened without interrupting. He made me feel safe. After dating for 2 years, Ryan proposed during a weekend trip to Mount Rainier. The sunset painted the sky in beautiful shades of orange and pink as he knelt on one knee. "Emily," he said with tears in his eyes, "I don't want another day without you beside me. Will you marry me?" I cried before I could even answer. Yes. It was the easiest decision I had ever made. Our wedding was only 3 weeks away now. The invitations had already been mailed. My wedding dress hung in the guest room. Every evening, Ryan and I sat at our kitchen table, making lists of everything we still needed to finish. Flowers, music, table decorations, the honeymoon. Sometimes we argued over tiny details, like the flavor of the wedding cake or which song should play during our first dance. But those arguments always ended with laughter. "This is going to be the happiest day of our lives," Ryan often said. I believed him. One Friday evening, we invited my parents over for dinner. Ryan grilled steaks in the backyard, while my mother helped me prepare mashed potatoes and salad. After dinner, my father pulled Ryan aside. I couldn't hear everything they said, but I caught one sentence. "Take good care of my daughter." Ryan looked my father straight in the eyes. "I promise I will." Hearing those words made my heart feel warm. Later that night, Ryan wrapped his arms around me while we stood on the back porch. "I can't wait to call you my wife," he whispered. I smiled. "Me neither." Then he added something that stayed in my mind. "You know what makes a marriage strong?" "What?" "No secrets." I nodded. No secrets. At the time, I thought we already shared everything. I couldn't have been more wrong. The following Monday, I was organizing art supplies in my classroom when my phone vibrated. The screen showed an unknown number. Normally, I ignored calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I almost pressed the decline button, but something made me answer. "Hello?" For a few seconds, no one spoke. Then I heard a woman's calm voice. "Is this Emily Carter?" "Yes, who's calling?" There was another long silence. Finally, she spoke again. "I know this is difficult, but you deserve to know the truth before you marry Ryan Brooks." My smile disappeared. "I'm sorry. Who is this?" "I'm someone who believes you should know who your fiancé really is." My heart started beating faster. "I don't understand." The woman took a deep breath. "Ryan was married before." I felt the room begin to spin. "What? He never told you, did he?" I couldn't answer. "He has a first marriage, and he's hiding it from you." Before I could ask another question, the call ended. I stared at my phone, hoping it had all been some strange prank. Ryan had told me everything, hadn't he? That evening, after Ryan went upstairs to take a shower, I sat alone in our home office, trying to convince myself to forget the call. Then I noticed the bottom drawer of his desk. It wasn't locked. I wasn't trying to invade his privacy. I just wanted proof that the woman had lied. With shaking hands, I slowly pulled the drawer open. Inside was a large brown envelope. There were old papers, several photographs, and one picture resting on top. The moment I picked it up, my entire world fell apart. Standing in the photograph was Ryan. He looked younger. He was smiling, wearing a black suit. Beside him stood a beautiful woman in a white wedding dress. On Ryan's left hand was a wedding ring. My hands began to shake so badly that the photograph slipped onto the floor. Upstairs, I heard the bathroom door open. Ryan was coming downstairs, and I still had the wedding picture in my hands. I quickly slid the photograph back into the envelope just before Ryan walked into the room. "There you are," he said with a smile. "I thought you were coming upstairs." I forced a smile, hoping he couldn't see the fear in my eyes. "I was just organizing some papers." He kissed my forehead. "Don't stay up too late." I nodded. But after he went to bed, I sat alone in the dark living room for hours. I couldn't stop thinking about the woman in the photograph. Who was she? Why had Ryan hidden those pictures? Most importantly, why had he never told me? The next morning, I looked at Ryan across the breakfast table. He was reading the news on his tablet while drinking coffee, just like every other morning. He looked exactly the same gentle smile, the same calm voice, the same man I had fallen in love with. But suddenly, I wasn't sure if I knew him at all. "You seem quiet," Ryan said. "Are you nervous about the wedding?" I looked into his eyes. For one brief moment, I almost asked him. Almost. Instead, I simply said, "I'm just tired." He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Everything's going to be okay." His words should have comforted me. Instead, they made my chest hurt, because I no longer knew if I could believe them. Over the next few days, I became someone I barely recognized. I smiled at work. I laughed with my students. I met my bridesmaids to discuss the wedding. But inside, I felt completely lost. Every night, after Ryan fell asleep, I searched for answers. I looked through old social media accounts. Nothing. Ryan had deleted almost everything from before we met. Then, I searched public records online. At first, I found nothing unusual. But after nearly 2 hours, I found it. A marriage license. Ryan Brooks, married 12 years earlier. My hands became cold. The phone call had been telling the truth. Ryan had been married before. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the computer screen. Oddly enough, I wasn't angry because he had once been married. People have pasts. Divorce happens. That wasn't the problem. The problem was that Ryan had looked into my eyes dozens of times and said, "I've never even been engaged before." That sentence echoed inside my head. It had been a lie, 3 years together. Built on a lie. The next afternoon, while I was cleaning my classroom after school, my phone vibrated again. The same unknown number. This time, I answered immediately. "Who are you?" The same calm voice replied, "My name doesn't matter." "It matters to me." "I know you're hurting." I swallowed hard. "What do you want?" "I don't want anything." She paused. "I just don't want you to make the same mistake I did." My heart skipped a beat. "Were you his wife?" "No." "Then who are you?" Another silence. Finally, she spoke. "Can we meet?" Every part of me knew I should say no, but another part desperately needed answers. We agreed to meet the following afternoon at a small coffee shop near downtown Seattle. The next day, I arrived 20 minutes early. I kept looking toward the door. Every woman who entered made my heart race. Finally, a young woman walked in. She looked about 20 years old. She had long brown hair tied into a ponytail and wore a simple blue sweater with jeans. She smiled nervously when she saw me. "Emily?" I stood. "Yes." She sat across from me. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she took a deep breath. "I know this is confusing." I nodded slowly. "Who are you?" She looked down at the coffee cup in her hands. Then she quietly answered, "My name is Hannah." I waited. She looked up at me with sad eyes. "I'm not Ryan's ex-wife." I felt both relieved and confused. "Then why are you here?" Tears filled her eyes. "Because..." She stopped speaking for a moment, as if the words were too painful to say. Then she whispered the sentence that shattered everything I still believed. "I'm Ryan Brooks' daughter." I stared at her without blinking. "No?" She slowly pulled an old photograph from her purse and placed it on the table. It showed Ryan, much younger, holding a little girl in his arms. Both of them were smiling. The little girl was Hannah. My heart pounded so loudly that I could barely hear the sounds around me. Ryan hadn't only hidden a marriage, he had hidden a child. I looked back at Hannah, my voice barely above a whisper. Does Ryan know you're here?" She slowly shook her head. "No." Then she leaned closer and said something that made my blood run cold. "And there's something else you don't know." I stared at Hannah, unable to speak. My mind was racing, but my heart refused to believe what I had just heard. "What else don't I know?" I finally asked. Hannah looked around the coffee shop before answering. "I'm not here because I want money. I'm not here because I want my father back." She took a deep breath. "I'm here because I don't want another woman to build her future on lies." I could hear the pain in her voice. She wasn't angry. She was heartbroken. My mom and dad divorced when I was 8, Hannah continued. Their marriage wasn't happy. They argued all the time. Eventually, they separated. I listened quietly. After the divorce, Dad moved to another city. He didn't disappear completely. He called sometimes. He sent birthday gifts. He helped pay for my college. I frowned. So, he stayed in your life? She nodded slowly. Yes, but only part of the time. I felt confused. If he still talks to you, then why hide you from me? A tear rolled down Hannah's cheek. I asked him that question last year. What did he say? She looked down at her hands. He said he was afraid. Afraid of what? He said if the woman he loved knew about his past, she might leave him. My chest tightened. Ryan hadn't forgotten his past. He had buried it, on purpose. Hannah reached into her bag again and handed me a folded piece of paper. This is the last birthday card he sent me. I opened it carefully. Inside, Ryan had written, I hope one day you'll forgive me for all the years I can't get back. I'll always love you, Dad. The handwriting was unmistakably his. Tears blurred my vision. The man who told me, no secrets, had been living 2 different lives, one with me, one with the daughter he never mentioned. After leaving the coffee shop, I drove around Seattle for nearly 2 hours. I couldn't bring myself to go home. Every memory with Ryan suddenly felt different. The weekends he claimed he had business meetings, the evenings when he came home late, the mysterious phone calls he always answered outside. I had trusted every explanation. Now I wondered how many of them had been true. That night, Ryan was making pasta when I walked into the kitchen. He smiled. You're home! I was starting to worry. I looked at him for a long moment. Then, I quietly placed the old wedding photograph on the kitchen counter. His smile disappeared instantly. The color drained from his face. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, he whispered, Where did you find that? In your desk. Ryan closed his eyes. I can explain. I folded my arms. I'm listening. He pulled out a chair and sat down heavily. Yes, I was married before. His words hurt far more than I expected. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to. When? He couldn't answer. Before the wedding? I asked. Another silence. After we had children? Still nothing. My voice began to shake. You looked into my eyes and told me you'd never even been engaged. I know. That wasn't just a mistake, Ryan. He lowered his head. I know. It was a lie. Tears filled his eyes. I was ashamed. I felt my own tears falling now. People aren't ashamed because they got divorced. He looked up at me. I wasn't ashamed of the divorce. Then what? I was ashamed that I failed as a husband and as a father. The room became silent. You know about Hannah? I asked. He nodded slowly. I've always known. I stared at him. You've been seeing her? Sometimes. You've been helping her? Yes. Then why? My voice broke. Why didn't you tell me she existed? Ryan buried his face in his hands. I was terrified. You had 3 years to tell me. I know. 3 years, Ryan. I know. I shared every part of my life with you. I'm sorry. I told you my fears. I'm sorry. I introduced you to my family. I'm sorry. I trusted you. He started crying, not quietly, not politely. He sobbed like a man whose world was falling apart. I never wanted to lose you, he whispered. I looked at the engagement ring on my finger. Just days ago, it had represented love. Now, it felt unbearably heavy. I slowly removed it. Ryan looked up, panic filling his eyes. Emily, please don't. I gently placed the ring on the kitchen table between us. I believe you love me, I said softly. His eyes filled with hope. But then I continued. Love without honesty isn't enough. His shoulders collapsed. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. Without another word, I picked up my overnight bag and walked toward the front door. Behind me, I heard Ryan call my name. Once, twice, 3 times. But I never turned around. As I stepped outside into the cold evening air, my phone vibrated. It was a text message from Hannah. Emily, I think you should know why my father was really afraid to tell you everything. The truth is much bigger than you think. I stared at Hannah's message for a long time. The truth is much bigger than you think. The next afternoon, we met once more at the same coffee shop. She looked nervous. I wasn't sure if I should tell you this, she said. I quietly replied, I deserve the truth. Hannah nodded. My father wasn't afraid because he had been married. She paused before continuing. He was afraid because every serious relationship after the divorce ended the same way. What do you mean? I asked. They all left after learning about me. I frowned. They left because he had a daughter? She shook her head. No. They left because he lied first. Those words hit me harder than anything else. It wasn't my existence that ruined his relationships, Hannah said softly. It was his fear. He always waited too long to tell the truth. I lowered my eyes. For the first time, I realized Ryan wasn't simply hiding his past from me. He had been trapped by his own mistakes for years. But understanding his fear didn't erase my pain. 2 days later, Ryan asked if we could meet one last time. We met at a quiet park where we had often walked together on Sunday afternoons. He looked different. His eyes were tired. His shoulders were heavy. He wasn't wearing the confident smile I had known for 3 years. Instead, he looked like a man carrying the weight of every bad decision he had ever made. I don't expect forgiveness, he began. I remained silent. I wrote something for you. He handed me a folded letter. I'd rather you read it after I leave. I nodded. He looked at me one final time. I loved you, Emily. I answered honestly. I know. And I ruined it. Neither of us cried. Sometimes the deepest sadness leaves no tears. It only leaves silence. Ryan turned and slowly walked away. That was the last time I saw him for many months. When I finally opened his letter at home, the first sentence immediately broke my heart. I thought hiding my past would protect my future. Instead, I destroyed the future I wanted most. He admitted everything. He admitted lying. He admitted being selfish. He admitted choosing fear over honesty. But there was one sentence I read over and over again. You didn't leave because I had a past. You left because I didn't trust you with the truth. For the first time since our breakup, I cried without anger. Only sadness. The wedding was officially canceled. Returning my wedding dress was one of the hardest things I had ever done. When the saleswoman gently asked, "Are you sure?" I simply smiled through my tears and said, "Yes." Months passed. Life slowly became quieter. I focused on my students. I spent weekends hiking with friends. I started seeing a therapist who helped me understand something important. Being betrayed wasn't my fault, but healing was my responsibility. Little by little, I smiled again. I laughed again. I slept peacefully again. Surprisingly, Hannah and I stayed in touch. Neither of us blamed the other. We had both been hurt by the same secret. One afternoon, she called with exciting news. I graduated from college. I'm so proud of you, I said. Would you come to my graduation? Without hesitation, I answered, I'd love to. The graduation ceremony was beautiful. Families cheered as students crossed the stage. When Hannah received her diploma, I stood and applauded as proudly as if she were my own little sister. After the ceremony ended, I noticed someone standing several yards away. Ryan! He looked healthier, calmer. He smiled politely, but didn't walk toward me. Instead, he waited until Hannah hugged both of us before quietly saying, I'm trying to become the father she always deserved. I smiled gently. I think you're finally on the right path. He nodded. I hope so. There was nothing left to argue about, nothing left to explain. Some stories don't end with two people getting back together. Some stories end with two people becoming better versions of themselves. As I drove home that evening, I realized something. 3 weeks before my wedding, I thought my life had been destroyed. But now I understood the truth. My life hadn't ended. It had simply changed direction. Losing Ryan was painful, but losing myself would have been far worse. Today, I no longer dream about having a perfect relationship. I dream about having an honest one. Because real love isn't built on beautiful promises. It's built on truth, even when the truth is difficult. My name is Emily Carter. I never became Ryan Brooks's wife. But I became someone much stronger than I had ever imagined. And if my story teaches you anything, let it be this. Never fear someone's past. Fear the silence they choose instead of honesty. Trust can survive difficult truths, but it rarely survives hidden ones. Thank you for listening to my story.